Announcement of the first All Black squad for 2021. New Zealand chairman, rugby chairman, Stuart Mitchell has announced the side. Ethan de Groot's one of the possible new caps. Ethan Blackadder as well. Sam Whitelock announced as the captain. 5 locks. The choice to make 7 loose forwards. Plenty of depth. A squad of 36 that comes together. And if we look at the backs, Finlay Christie, after some outstanding performances for the Blues, has forced his way into the All Black squad. First fives and Barrett and Mwanga. Quinn Tupaia, who's not a surprise selection, his form for the Chiefs very, very good. Anton Leonard-Brown looks as though he will not be available to selection possibly till the first test against Fiji, maybe the second, and possibly the only unlucky maybe centre back 3 player is Lester Whanganuku from the Crusaders, but hot property getting an opportunity being part of this All Black scene. Mills, your initial reaction to that group of players, the balance that they've put together, and how do you see that combination without the experience they've got up front they've had in the past?
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the talking spot. Really, is how they can move on. Yes, they have got guys like Angus Ta'ava and also Karl Tu'unukuafe, but how are they going to get that? Because it's always been a pillar in terms of the All Black, the style that we play, that we make sure we set the scene up front. So yeah, they've lost a bit of experience. I like the balance of it, and like you've mentioned, I think guys that have played really well. Whanganuku I thought was unlucky, but obviously Quinn Tupaia, he brings something different. The All Blacks selectors have obviously wanted to see JK.
Yeah, I've just been writing down. I think the back row and the centres is a really interesting conversation. I put 13 against Enor for you, Goldie, and then Havili 12, Rico 13, Anton 13, and Quinn 12. So actually, we're quite thin there, I reckon. But they said that. And then the loose forwards, I've gone down and written 6, 6, 8, 8, and there's only one sort of 7. Real out and out 7 if you count Artie as an 8. So I think that, but like Foxy said, I think we're all just going to have to get used to players being that good that they're going to have to cover. And I think Plum spoke about maybe Ethan playing 7, Hannah, which you just have to get on with, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. And I think I'm really pleased that they've rewarded some players for their form in Super Rugby this year, and also obviously the return of Barrett and Retallick. Good to see them back in black.
Yeah, and the fact that we talked about lock a couple of years ago, and that's what Grant Fox and Fozzie talked about as well. The fact that all of a sudden we've got 5 viable options. How quickly would you expect maybe Brodie to come back into the mix, Hannah? Do you take some time with him to make sure he gets up to speed?
Yeah, he probably needs to be assessed when he comes back into the group, right? He's obviously, when we spoke to him last week, lost a little bit of weight, and how that fits into the group. So get him back into the group, maybe a week or 2, and put him back in.
What about how we play?
Bag's not to do his contact assessment.
No,
do not want to do his contact assessment. Anyone available?
I'm really fascinated about the way they put these teams together and combinations. For me, Mills, do they look at some of what they've done in Super Rugby, guys who have played together, and do they give them a chance to build on that, or are they? It's a blank sheet and we go, you know what, like JK said and what Foxy said, is it about time putting the best players out there and we work on our game?
I think they'll have a blueprint in terms of the style that they want to play. I think they would have learned a lot from what happened last year, and possibly implement most. There's no use reinventing the wheel, but I think it's the little tweaks. And given the times, you can't really test them. I think, this leading into this, if you're going to focus on purely the fact, the Aussie game is where you want to hit your best team, then they probably have got a nice relaxed and sort of experimental sort of process before that in terms of Tonga and also Fiji. So I guess in some ways it's going to possibly play into their head.
I don't know, Mills. I don't know if you've actually got that luxury. Last year it was really interesting. They didn't have a lot of test matches to get ready. And I think you're right. You could do that, but you actually don't have a lot of time to get ready for, the Australian side. So I reckon that's going to be a difficult one for them. Do we, you asked Hannah, you asked Fozzie, what do you do? And he says, no promises. But, I'd be getting Retallick out there as quick as I could, because I think, you just got to get him back in the saddle.
Hannah, I've got a sense that what happens from Monday to Friday is going to be really important for a lot of these players. Do you get that sense as well? The fact that, yes, we know on the weekends that they should have a competitive advantage over Tonga and Fiji. But during the week, is that the chance for players to step up and make their mark? Yeah,
really important. It'll be interesting, the Blues and the Highlanders, how they come in, hopefully fresh after a weekend of celebrating.
Maybe not today, maybe not fresh today, but when they come into camp. But important for everyone to step
really
up.
Important, and not just on the field, not just the technical, tactical stuff, but also coming in, learning, understanding the culture and the structures that are set up in the All Blacks. That part of it's really important also.
Oh, I think it's an exciting selection though, Mills, because the fact that we're never short on talent. That's something we don't lack here in New Zealand. Can we play an expansive game Is that the best way for us to go? If you start talking about the fact we're going to, for the first time since 2019, play South Africa, and they were to come off the back of a series against the Lions. Now that's exciting to me. I can't wait for that matchup.
Well, the balance has got to be right. I mean, it's always been one of our, I suppose, our positives. Our strengths is the ability to be able to offload and play out wide, but also, you've got to mix it up with the balance of the forwards and winning that dominance up front. You don't get that, then we can't play the flash. And we've struggled over the years when we've gone to that too early, Hannah. And so I guess the balance for me, they've got to get it right.
Yeah, they do. And I wonder if Super Rugby very much, they played that wide, expansive game. They used crossfield kicks. There was a lot of tries scored out wide, but agree they need to get it right up front first.
Said the words that I like to hear, JK, heads up rugby, where they play what's in front of them. Did we go away from that a couple of seasons ago? We started talking about this dual pivot for a long, long time, the two playmakers.
Yeah, and I think what I've seen is a real step up in quality from the Northern Hemisphere, and they know their style really clearly. I think the last few World Cups we've come up with some innovation. We came up with the pods and then passing out the back. Is there any innovation left? And if you do have some innovation coming, when do you bring it out? And I think that's really hard in our game. Wayne Smith spoke about it on this show a couple of months ago. What are we going to bring? Because we always lead in innovation. And when you think about the game, it's hard to know. Is it more kicking, less kicking, different types of kicking? So I think there's some stuff that you could possibly experiment with this year, but you can't show all your cards either because you've only got 30 tests left.
There's a few guys I want to talk about who have had an opportunity in and around the environment. David Havili. You think about the transition he's made from being a fullback, outside back, Mills, to being a 12. Significant change for him, filled the shoes of Ryan Crotty. How did this guy make himself such a standout this season?
I think it's his skill set, and I think if he's totally honest, he's probably a little bit more reluctant to go into that role. But things fall into place, and when you've got a skill set like he has, defensively, but this is his attacking stuff. He's got a nice awareness of the game, his offloading game, but also, his wide pass. So it just takes a little bit of getting used to, moving into that position, Hannah. But I think, for me, really, his ability and his nous as well, and his skill set definitely for me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see him play in this Test series. Really got a chance to make that 12 jersey his own, and agree, great skill set. Also has the ability to see space coming from the outside backs and understands that and can talk as well. So.
He's played outstandingly well, as has Luke Jacobson. And you think about another, coming from adversity, getting over injuries. JK, one for me, I look at the way, the versatility he brings. He was a big part of the Chiefs, and you talked about it, Hannah, as well. Rewarding form for guys who stepped up to the mark. They had big impacts, Havili, Jacobson, on their Super Rugby franchises.
Yeah, when the Chiefs sort of had that turnaround, they were facing the worst ever record or something, and he was one of those players that even when they weren't winning was still stepping up. And then after that, when the team was down, I remember Mills, you and I down watching the Blues, and he just stood up that night, at critical times. And so I think Hannah's right. It's really important that those guys that step up at Super Rugby can still see that is their pathway. That's what they need to do. They need to perform. They need to perform under pressure in those big games, and you will get rewarded. I come back to the mix in the loose forwards. So I think it's really interesting. But he's certainly a guy that can definitely cover, 2 if not 3 of those positions. And as we move forward, as the game evolves, it looks like that's going to happen because quite a lot of attrition rate in the loose forwards, and you have to cover a couple of positions. So well done. He'd be really, really proud because he's had to work for every minute.